What do you make of this rotation? Because it's been pretty rapid fire under the surface, between the hardwares, the softwares, the Mag 7. Does it make sense to you?
Yeah, I think what's happening and what we've really been observing in the market is a lot of macro pressure. And a lot of that macro pressure is overweighing some of the really strong fundamental earnings that we've seen on the micro side. And so what we kind of see is a lot of short-term volatility, and that short-term volatility is driven, by a number of things. And a number of things being, you've seen a lot of the oil prices out of the situation in Iran. Now that, obviously has a lot of implications, but specifically for the jewels of the AI supply chain, meaning South Korea and Taiwan. They're largely energy dependent, and that has a lot of pressure on, the currency and inflation. So it provides a little bit more volatility. So we kind of view this volatility that's happening right now in the market has given people a reason to pause, take a step back, and really look at the full AI picture and understand where do they want to position themselves within that. And what we've really been looking at is, finding some of those companies that can take what they've generated from AI exposure and turning that into actual durable earnings power over the long run.
Where is that?
Yeah, so I think a perfect example where you're starting to see that, really solidify itself is in the high bandwidth memory space, specific also for the DRAM segment. And we've seen that just happen last week with some of the Micron earning numbers that came out. Really strong quarter, really strong results, really strong guidance. And when you start pulling it back and understanding why do they accrue so much value, and you could start looking at the $1 trillion of capex that is going into a lot of these data centers in the US, almost 40% of it is going into memory. So when you're looking at where people are actually finding some of these pockets that are not only AI exposed, but actually capturing some of the durable value, memory is kind of the proof point that we would look for. Now that's one that's everyone knows, everyone's kind of very, very cognizant of. One that we find a little interesting is the proliferation of data. It's very important to store it. It's also very important to move it. So we've been interested in some of the more networking plays, a lot of the more interconnects, and specifically two companies have really caught our eye. Marvell on the networking fabric side, and then we've also really liked Semtech. Semtech has a really strong positioning in the market. It's all around signal integrity. So just as much as it's important to move the data, it's also really important to make sure that it has the highest degree of integrity signal while it's doing so, to make sure that you keep low latency, low power pull, and the fastest speeds possible.
So we've certainly seen that migration of capital away from the hyperscalers into sort of the more bottlenecks, as you say, the memory, the AI infrastructure plays, the networking, etc. And it's sort of been characterized as the check writers versus the check takers now.
Exactly.
Something interesting happened in South Korea last night, where the check writers, which had been the check takers, South Korean, SK Hynix and Samsung, then became kind of like the check writers.
Exactly.
So we saw a migration and rotation of capital out of those names, which have been performing very, very well, into your industrials, into your renewable energy, because obviously these fabs that they're planning to build out in Korea are going to be, well, they hope to be powered by renewable energy. Is that what we're starting to see here in the US, do you think? I mean, the check beneficiaries, those that are taking advantage of all that capex, are also spending a lot of money. You're going to start to see that rotation into the industrials, because the industrials are performing very well month to date.
Yeah, I think you're definitely going to see part of that start playing through. Where we've seen some of the rotation specifically in AI for the US has been a rotation out. People have started been taking some profits into some of the more defensive positions that they can find in the current market. But also, again, what we've seen more likely is the rotation within AI itself. So when we've kind of looked at how some of the interconnect and optics companies have performed, some of the cooling companies have performed throughout the first 2 quarters of the year, you've seen some of that start lagging the memory companies. And part of that rotation, we think, is really driven by investors taking a step back, looking at who actually owns the long-term durable value. And that's kind of led a little bit more investment into the ones that you've seen, such as the memory companies, one, but two, also some of the semis.
But when you see this rapid fire rotation under the surface day by day, now it's starting to sort of even itself out. But this morning it was like all the memory were down, everything was up. Some days hardware's up, sometimes software's up. Today they're obviously rallying in unison, but sometimes the Mag 7's up when the rest of the market is down. I'm just wondering how you invest around the AI trade when you have this short-term attention span under the surface with, this flip-flopping and seesawing. Would it be better just to try to capture it all within sort of one index right now, rather than be selective in, you know, a particular part or category that could be up or down the next day?
Yeah, well, the way that we look at it is when you, again, look at who's actually capturing a lot of the value. A lot of the market, I would say, like the rising tides have really lifted all boats over the last year, and you've seen a lot of names that have been exposed, you know, have a really significant run. We think that's changing. We think you're going to really want a little bit more exposure to the names that really can provide durable franchise value to where they're sitting within the infrastructure stack. And part of the short-term volatility we kind of view more as opportunity. All of the macro noise is not necessarily something that is breaking the long-term AI build-out. It's more providing a little bit more of a difficult short-term trading setup.
Yeah.
And so if you think about some of the names that you have high conviction in over the long term, some of this short-term volatility can actually be a really good buying opportunity.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I heard some traders today who were sort of saying, look, it's just doing our absolute heads in, this entire AI trade right now, because of just how much it flip-flops on a day. Back to your original point, though, interesting characterization on.
So tech not a wreck, but tell me exactly what your thinking is here.
So at least when I approach tech right now, Liz, it's all about changing rate expectations. We had the Fed come out a few weeks ago with a new dot plot, obviously a new sheriff in town in the form of Kevin Warsh, some changes in sentiment, a little bit more hawkish on paper. The market not necessarily liking that, sending a jolt from a confidence perspective. But we got to remember, first of all, that those big tech players, those AI names that are driving U.S. stocks higher, they don't care what's going on with interest rates. 25 basis points doesn't make a lick of a difference, up or down. We also got to remember that while there's a lot of noise around rate expectations right now, there is still a bias towards easing. I think that gets lost in all this noise. And when you combine those two things together, I think it is still full steam ahead for this tech sector, at least over the long term.
Anything worry about what we saw with the jobs report? It was a miss. 57,000 jobs were added to the economy versus 115,000 expected.
Nothing to sniff at, right? 50,000 jobs is perfectly fine. It's a disappointment relative to where we had been before, what we were expecting. But when you look at the data, there is a very clear inflection point. This labor market has turned a quarter. Things are starting to pick up steam, and it's broad-based, which is important.
But let's get right to the floor show, because there's a whole bunch of plate moving and spinning here at the New York Stock Exchange, and who would be better to talk about it than longtime trader Peter Tuchman? Applause, please.
Yes, hi.
Okay, the action on the floor. So it's been a little bit different this week, where we have seen the real winners of the first half start to stumble and faceplant a bit.
But we need to look at the price action is extraordinary.
Meaning,
and when you see, I mean when you're seeing the look on the downside, the market is not at all forgiving. When they want to sell them, they sell them with a bang. And we saw that with Broadcom a couple of weeks ago when it had great earnings, it missed slightly on guidance, and it was down 18%. But you can't say that if it's down, something is down 14% today, but it's been up 38-40% over the last 3 weeks, that it's really it's a bad day. You have to realize what's happening is there's a lot of short-term trading going on.
Okay.
In a market with this kind of volatility, and you've got hedge fund managers and big funds that are no longer the buy and hold posture. They're really trading the market because that's how they're getting the best returns for their customers. You're seeing them get in and get out, and that's where you're seeing this happen.
What about investors who are watching right now and are not the wild traders like you?
You know what? Look, I think investors have got to be happy about everything that's happened this year. Imagine what has been thrown at this market over the last 6 months. We just closed out the second quarter, the half, and the market is spectacular. Think about what we've gone through. Oil literally from 63.5 to 120, sustaining itself above 110 for months at a time. That the inflationary effect on that is huge. Yet the market continues to hit record highs every day, every week. Dow at a record high, 52,000. We blew through the 50,000. Where are we here? That's for you. We blew through 50. We can't. I didn't even have time to make a 52,000 hat. Okay. S&P blew through 7,600.
You didn't have time to make the 52,000.
I didn't have time. I'm sorry. Market's moving so fast. The embroidery guy can't even keep up with it. But think about where we are in the market after 6 months. You're hearing the whoops. That's an old tradition from the floor on a 3-day weekend. It'll build up in excitement as we go towards 333.
So 8:33 p.m. Eastern. That's what you need to be here. Well, you need
And
to be here the
33
whole
seconds,
show.
actually.
And 33 seconds.
33, right, exactly.
Okay.
So, but I think it's really important to know where we just came from, where we are, and what's been thrown at this market. We've had a war.
True.
We've had, inflation that was obviously affected by oil prices. That, think about it, for every $10 increase in a barrel of oil is equivalent to 1% GDP. Okay, we went from 63.5 a barrel to 120 and stayed above 110 for a number of months. I think with all that being said, the market handled it amazingly well. Now we're back at the 73 level.
Peter, when you look at areas that have not soared as much as, say, for example, the memory chip makers or some of the hyperscalers, which sort of it's become more of an industrial tech play that we're seeing now and less focused on the hyperscalers, beyond technology, where are you starting to see some nibbling on behalf of clients that pick up the phone and call you?
You know what? Look, it's hard. It's hard to really identify where. Obviously, I'm a firm believer. I work a lot with Dan Ives. Dan Ives is the tech master. He still believes we're in the third inning of a 9-inning game that's going into extra innings in the building of data centers in AI. That game is not over by any means.
Where's Dan going? Dan is leaving Wedbush.
Yes, he's going on to start something on his own.
Oh, nice.
Right, yeah, he announced it yesterday on CNBC, and I believe he said he's merging with a hedge fund and some kind of a home office or an investment bank. Everybody's really excited about it. It's a great move. But I mean, if you think about what happened to software, we've bounced back a lot. That is one sector that has not made it all the way back. Tech got beat up a lot. It also has come back. There are a lot of things that happened at the end of last year that really were problematic when they said AI was a bubble. We're still getting over the trauma from that. But taking into account what we've just lived through for the last 6 months, with the war, with inflation, with oil, I think we're in.
Every time I talk to you, you get a new title. All right, let's just start with this whole AI.com. You know, every morning you wake up and someone's making a comparison. I love this though, right? You go back 5 years into the bubble, right? When you go back to the peak of the bubble before it burst, P/E ratios went up 300%. Right now they're actually down. Stock prices went up 780%. We're up good 160%. Of course, there's some stocks that are up 1,000%. Nonetheless, you know, you must deal with this on a daily basis. What are you telling people?
Well, there's a couple of things that are very important for investors. First of all, analogs are terrible. And you see these charts going around everywhere. Charles is like, oh, this looks just like 1999.
Right.
Markets never play out the same way twice. It's kind of like lightning. So take those with a grain of salt. Also, there's just a massive difference. And you're pointing that out there on your charts, is that back in the dot-com bubble, I lived through that dot-com bubble. I was trading portfolios back then. And these stocks didn't have business plans in a lot of cases. They had no revenue. They had no real direction where they're headed. They were just slapping .com on the end of their name and running up in the markets. Today, that's a very different story. I'm doing an article for next week talking about the profit margins and revenues of the Mag 7 in particular versus the rest of the markets. These are giant earners. And when you start looking at the fundamentals of these companies, the revenue growth, that's where you want to be investing. Sure, there's going to be times they wiggle a little bit, they wobble a little bit, but long term, you buy the fundamentals, you're going to win this game. Right
now, so the Bank of International Settlements came out with a really scary thing. They're talking about the global economy being in what they call the cross currents, and they call AI sort of the progress and peril. And they essentially say resilience is being increased and tested. So here we are right now, all of these red dots are the S&P 500. Stock pricing ambitious, earnings growth ambitious. Also, this is interesting to me. They point to households exposure. So 0 to 20%, the lowest part of the economic sphere, up huge. I love this. I applaud this. Rich folks, though, on the other side, 80 to the top 10%, 20% up here. But look at this. Your top 1%, they've gone from less than 40 to 50%. In other words, I want to invest where rich people are investing. At least I want to do what they do. And so some are saying, well, yeah, we've got this margin situation. And we've all seen these charts. Margin debt is at record highs. But as a percentage of the Wilshire 5000, it's extremely low. How concerned are you that this money is out there? Because you posed the question, where's this money coming from?
Well, I'm writing another article about margin debt for the next week. First of all, margin debt to market cap is not a really great tool to look at because market cap's going up, not because of margin debt. Margin debt's only about 2% of the total market. So it's not a big factor. Stock buybacks, foreign inflows in U.S. stocks, those are much bigger factors. That's what's driving the market cap. So the market cap, the denominator kind of deflates the numerator a bit. So take that one with a little bit of grain of salt. But Charles, take a look at how rapid the rate of change in margin debt. That's a much better way to look at that. And there is a bit of concern there for sure. But margin debt drives the market higher. Margin debt is fuel for buying that moves stock prices higher. It cuts in the other direction during a decline. So it's important to pay attention to it, but I wouldn't be scared of it right now because it is supportive of the market near term. And as long as momentum's positive, it's okay.
You say, and you talk about the current state of the market, you say that the tape should be managed, not chased. What does that mean right now?
Well, look, like last week, for instance, there's been a lot of negativity about the Mag 7 stocks, right? They're going down, the semiconductors are going up. Made complete sense. We're in an environment into the quarter rebalancing. Investors were selling stocks to go chase semiconductors. And we wrote last week that we were rotating back into the Mag 7 in particular, because that has been very depressed. Again, go back to earnings, revenue growth, those type of things. There's opportunity there because it's been sold off versus buying the stuff that's gone up. So the important thing here is to manage your risk, manage the environment you're in, and that helps you create.
Some traders today who were sort of saying, look, it's just doing our absolute heads in, this entire AI trade right now, because of just how much it flip-flops on a day. Back to your original point, though, interesting characterization of the macro weighing on the micro, because everything you hear with respect to these sort of year-end targets, it's just earnings strength. I mean, we have had a positive earnings shock in this market, and it's been largely driven by tech. People talk about the narrowness of the earnings profile right now, even though some, like Mike Wilson from Morgan Stanley, would argue it is broadening out, which is encouraging. But I am wondering, this is a market that rallied through an entire war, basically. I mean, hit record highs still. Where is the macro weighing on the micro? Do you suspect that maybe what we heard from Apple with some of the AI inflation is going to start to become a problem?
Yeah, we think it's a combination of almost an ever-increasing list that is adding to some of the volatility. So first, you have people really trying to digest the Fed decision. And whether it's going to be a little bit more hawkish and getting a little bit more comfortable with the fact that they don't have as much visibility into that. Again, you have some of the conflict in Iran and how that plays out with energy prices and inflation, with some of the very critical supply chain geographical locations that supply into the U.S. For the specific AI build out. And then you also have, as you mentioned, the memory inflation, which is starting to kind of trickle through. So you also have the, that kind of weighs into the Fed decision as well. Is that going to start, playing into specific policy adjustments? So when we think about, a lot of that all converging at the same time, it was very quick to overwhelm the really strong Micron earnings that happened last week. But when we think about, how does this, set ourselves up for the short term, we're looking at the next 30 days. The next 30 days, towards the end of July, we're expecting to see a lot more, earnings come out for a lot of the semi players that are specifically like ASML, TSMC, some of these really critical players that are going to provide a little bit more visibility into the lead times of capacity and how they're actually leaning into it, whether they're leaning into it. You have the hyperscalers coming up for earnings towards the end of the month. So again, we're going to get a lot more visibility, a huge earnings season coming up. And if what we've seen from Micron is what to expect from some of the other players in the space that are also capturing a lot of that value, we think it's a really good opportunity for the micro to kind of push back a little bit.